Good morning, my dear students. And we are doing basically chapter 4, the psychological disorders, in which we had studied about the concept of abnormality, the historical background of abnormality, how the abnormality is developed, and what are the causes of, what are the underlying factors, or you can say the causes of abnormal behavior, in which we had studied about so many major approaches like biological approach, genetic approach, psychodynamic models. उसमें बेसिकली हमने सॉरी साइकोलॉजिकल मॉडल्स, साइकोलॉजिकल अप्रोच के अंडर हमने बेसिकली किया साइकोडायनामिक अप्रोच, बिहेवियरल, कॉग्निटिव, ह्यूमनिस्टिक, एग्जिस्टेंशियल एंड सोशियो कल्चरल. एंड हमारा लास्ट अप्रोच जो रह गया है विच इज़ रिमेनिंग, दैट इज़ द डायथेसिस स्ट्रेस मॉडल. दिस इज़ द लास्ट अप्रोच. आफ्टर दैट we had start the basic disorders, ठीक है, which is very interesting and the main topic of the chapter 4, the disorders part. Disorders, that's mean the symptom, causes and treatment. The meaning, symptoms, causes and treatment. In 4 perspective के basis में हम detail में disorders करेंगे. So first of all the remaining part which is diathesis stress model. Let's look at the concept. This model is basically a recent model and it is widely accepted. So basically in addition to these models that mean previous models, and one of the most widely accepted explanation of abnormal behavior has been provided by the diathesis stress model. This model states that psychological disorders developed when a diathesis, that means the biological predispositions to the disorder, is set off by a stressful situations, and this model has 3 components. The first is the diathesis, or the presence of some biological aberrations which may be inherited, and the second component is that the diathesis may be carry a vulnerability to develop a psychological disorder, and this means that the person is at risk or predisposed to develop the disorders. The third component is the presence of pathogenic stressors, that is the factors or the stressors that may lead to psychopathology. So if such at risk person are exposed to these stressors, their predispositions may actually involve into a disorder. This model has been applied to several disorders including anxiety, depression and schizophrenia. So let's understand, this is the main content of your disorder of this model. Let's look at the one by one this content. So psychological disorders develop when a diathesis, when a persons have the diathesis something that is biological predisposition to the disorder, एक biological combination of genes, या you can say something which is a genetic and a biological cause and which is inherited. ठीक है, ये बहुत inborn tendency हो सकती है, inborn predispositions. So is set off by a stressful situation. So this model has 3 components. 3 component इस model का. First component जो है, this is known as diathesis. The first is the diathesis or the presence of some biological aberrations which may be inherited. ठीक है, diathesis that means कोई भी biological predisposition जो कि already exist करता है आपकी biology में, आपके body में, which is basically inherited from your parents. ठीक है, something कुछ ऐसा जो आपके parents के through आप में inheritance के through exist कर रहा है. This biological predisposition is known as diathesis. Now the second component is that the diathesis may carry a vulnerability, that is he or she is at risk. That means the biological predisposition, the biological characteristics which are inherited are basically increase the vulnerability of the developing the disorder in this person. ठीक है, for comparing 2 person, ठीक है, one person who have the biological predisposition, who have the diathesis, and one person who have not. So definitely the person who have the diathesis, that means the biological predisposition, that may be vulnerable to the psychological diseases, psychological disorders. That means the person is at risk. जो चांसेस है, जो वल्नरेबिलिटी है वो डिसऑर्डर्स डेवलप होने की, साइकोलॉजिकल प्रॉब्लम्स अराइज होने की, वो ज़्यादा है, उसकी चांसेस ज़्यादा हैं, उसका अमाउंट ज़्यादा हो सकता है उन पर्सनस में हु हैव द डायथेसिस. Okay, so this is the second component. That means the person who is feeling the who have the diathesis may carry a vulnerability, that is he or she is at risk or predisposed to develop a disorders or the diseases. So third is to presence of pathogenic stresses, that is factors or the stresses, environmental stresses, ठीक है, एक्सटर्नल और द इंटरनल सिचुएशन से कोई भी अगर ऐसा स्ट्रेसेस जनरेट होता है जिससे उनका एक्सपोजर होता है, वो अगर प्रीसेंस है, अवेलेबल है, तो पैथोजेनिक स्ट्रेसेस, तो उससे डिसऑर्डर्स डेवलप होने के चांसेस उन पर्सनस में ज़्यादा है हु हैव द डायथेसिस, ठीक है. दिस इज़ द थर्ड स्टेप. This is little bit difficult concept, little bit confusing, but am I explaining in a very clear way? The first step, that's mean the diathesis, that's mean the presence of some biological aberrations which may be inherited. Second component is the person who has diathesis is at risk. That's mean the vulnerability of the developing the disorder is high. That's mean a person is at risk. Third is if he or she is exposed to the presence of the pathogenic stresses, then definitely the person is developed the disorder. This is the whole model. Okay, this is the whole concept of this model, diathesis stress model, and this is very recent and very little bit confusing model, but this model has been applied to several disorders. For example, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and so many, almost all of the disorders. Okay, so this is all about the models, the underlying factors, the causes of the disorders. Okay, let's move on to the main topic, main content of this chapter, which is the disorders. So our first disorder is the anxiety disorders. In anxiety disorder is basically a group of disorder. So many small disorders are considered in a broader category which is known as anxiety disorder. Let's look at according to ICD-10. Okay, first of all, let me understand the concept of anxiety. What is anxiety? So anxiety that means anxiety is usually defined as a diffuse, vague, very unpleasant feeling of fear and apprehension. A feeling of vague and diffuse unpleasant feeling of fear and apprehension. जब आप fear की feeling feel करते हो, apprehension की feeling feel करते हो in a very general way, in a very unpleasant way, this is known as anxiety generally. Okay, and if the feelings are prolonged, if the feelings are very much severe, and the level of these feelings are very much high, so definitely it is considered as an anxiety disorder. This is the concept of anxiety. And when these feelings are prolonged and high intensity of these symptoms, then only these feelings are considered in as an anxiety disorder. Okay, let's look at the according to ICD-10. This is the ICD-10 manual, and according to ICD-10 manual, the neurotic, stress-related and somatoform disorder are basically considered in a F40 to F48 categories. ICD बेसिकली एफ के फॉर्म में ही एक्सप्लेन करता है. एफ दैट्स मीन एक्सेस जो होते हैं, आप डीएसएम देखोगे, डीएसएम के मैनुअल में आप एक्सेस के फॉर्म में कंपेयर करते हो डिसऑर्डर्स को, उनके क्लासिफिकेशन को, और आईसीडी जो है ये एफ के फॉर्म में एक्सप्लेन करता है. सो F40 to F48 इस रेंज में बेसिकली न्यूरोटिक, स्ट्रेस रिलेटेड एंड सोमेटोफॉर्म डिसऑर्डर्स को दिया गया है इसमें. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल F40 में जितनी भी सेक्शंस है, F40, F41, 42, 40.8, 40.9, 40.2, these are the basically specialized phobias. ठीक है, phobias एंजाइटी डिसऑर्डर, फोबिया से रिलेटेड जो एंजाइटी डिसऑर्डर है, these are considered in this category. So now other category is the other anxiety disorder. In this, the panic disorder, the generalized anxiety disorder, mixed anxiety and depressive disorders, other mixed anxiety disorders, and other specified anxiety disorder, and anxiety disorder which is unspecified. These are the category. OCD is also considered in this category, and the reaction to severe stress and adjustment disorders. ठीक है. दैट्स मीन दिस इज अ ब्रॉडर कैटेगरी जिसके अंदर कंसिडर किया गया है बहुत सारे डिसऑर्डर्स को. बेसिकली द फोबिक एनजाइटी डिसऑर्डर, अदर एनजाइटी डिसऑर्डर, OCDs and reactions to stress and adjustment disorder. And one more slide is here. This is the dissociative disorders and the somatoform disorders and other neurotic disorders. So these are the broader category जिसके basis पे बहुत सारे disorders को explain किया गया है. And these all disorders are considered in a stress related, or you can say see the previous neurotic, stress related and somatoform disorders. Okay, so in this the F41 and F41.9 explain the anxiety disorder which are unspecified. This is main category, other anxiety disorder, and the first one is phobic anxiety disorder. This is the according to ICD, this is classified as a disorder. These all disorders are basically considered in an anxiety disorder. The first one is generalized anxiety disorder, then panic disorders, phobias, that means the specific phobias and the social phobias, agoraphobia, so many phobias are here. Then the OCDs, obsessive compulsive disorders, the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the dissociative disorder. These all disorders are basically considered in a one category, anxiety disorder, which is a broader category. All disorders are basically related to the anxiety problems. Anxiety is in a root. So what is anxiety? You had already understand the concept of anxiety. Let's look at the in detail. Let's start this concept with a example. So one day while driving home, Dev felt his heart beating rapidly, and he started sweating profusely and even felt short of breath. So he was so scared that he stopped the car and stepped out. In the next few months, these attacks increased, and now he was hesitant to drive for fear of being cuffed in traffic during one attack. So Deb is the name of the individual. So Deb started feeling that he had gone crazy and would die. Soon he remained indoors and refused to move out of the house. So we experience anxiety when we are waiting to take an examination or to visit a dentist or even to give a solo performance. So this is normal and expected and even motivated us to do our task well. On the other hand, high level of anxiety that are distressing and interfere with effective functioning indicates the presence of an anxiety disorder. That's mean the little bit anxiety is person feel any of the situation in their life. ठीक है, कभी भी वो feel कर सकता है anxiety. But when their anxiety is very much severe and it interfere their life routine, their life बेसिकली जब आप इतनी ज़्यादा हाई लेवल ऑफ एनजाइटी हो कि वो आपके डेली रूटीन को, आपकी फंक्शनिंग को डिसफंक्शन करे. यू रिमेंबर द 4 Ds. ओके, सो व्हेन द डिसफंक्शनल हो जाएगी एनजाइटी, आप अपना फंक्शन प्रॉपर फॉलो ना कर पाओ, इतनी सीवियर हो जाए. सो दिस इज कंसिडर एज एन एनजाइटी डिसऑर्डर. ओके, द मोस्ट कॉमन कैटेगरी ऑफ साइकोलॉजिकल डिसऑर्डर्स, द मोस्ट पॉपुलर एंड द मोस्ट spread category of this is most popular and most spread category of disorders. This is anxiety disorders. So everyone has worried and feared. The term anxiety is usually defined as a diffuse, vague, very unpleasant feeling of fear and apprehension. The anxious individual also show combination of the following symptoms. The symptoms of the anxiety disorder is basically रैपिड हार्ट रेट, ठीक है, शॉर्टनेस ऑफ ब्रीथ, डायरिया, लॉस ऑफ एपेटाइट, फैटीग, डिजीनेस, स्वीटिंग, sleeplessness, frequent urinations and tremors. These are the symptoms of anxiety disorders. So first of all, the concept of anxiety disorder, then the symptoms. The symptoms are rapid heart rate and the shortness of breath, diarrhea, loss of appetite, fatigue, dizziness, sweating, sleeplessness, frequent urination and tremors. There are many type of anxiety disorder. Now type of anxiety disorder which is given in your book at 4.1. Okay, they include the generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, phobias and the separation anxiety disorder according to your textbook. but there are so many other category also considered in an anxiety disorder, but you have to write down according to your textbook. So first of all, the generalized anxiety disorder. This is the one of the very popular, very common anxiety disorder. This is generalized anxiety disorder. As the name suggests, the generalized anxiety disorder, that means that disorders cause, the anxiety cause is basically not known. Okay, that's why this is a generalized. So which consists of prolonged, vague, unexplained and intense fears that are not attached to any particular object. ठीक है, ये जो आपका वेग एंड अनएक्सप्लेन्ड फियर है, इंटेंस फियर है, दिस आर दैट इज बेसिकली नॉट अटैच विद एनी ऑब्जेक्ट और पर्टिकुलर ऑब्जेक्ट और द एट पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन. द सिम्टम्स include worry and apprehensive feelings about the future, hypervigilance, which involve constantly scanning the environment for danger. So it is marked by motor tension, as a result of which the person is unable to relax and is restless and visually shaky and tense. These are the symptoms. Basically वो क्या करेगा, they are unable to slow down, unable to relax, and they are basically restless and visually shaky and tense. Another type of an anxiety disorder is panic disorder. Panic disorder, that means which consists of recurrent anxiety attacks in which the person experiences intense terror. A panic attack, panic disorder में basically क्या होता है कि आप अटैक फील करते हो. एक टाइम पीरियड ऐसा आता है जब आप इतना ज़्यादा एक्सेसिव फियर जनरेट होता है कि आप उस टाइम पे आपको वो पैनिक अटैक्स आ जाता है और आप बेहोश हो जाते हो या आप कहीं पे भी बंद हो जाते हो, तो आप बहुत ज़्यादा टेंशनाइज हो जाते हो. स्पेशली आपको जब अटैक आता है तो आप बेहोश हो जाते हो. सो विच कंसिस्ट ऑफ recurrent anxiety attacks in which the person experiences intense terror. A panic attack denotes an apparent surge of intense anxiety rising to a peak when thought of a particular stimuli are present. So such thought occur in an unpredictable manner. ठीक है, बेसिकली क्या होता है इसमें, a panic attack denotes an abrupt surge of intense anxiety rising to a peak when thought of a particular stimuli are present, and such thoughts occur in an unpredictable manner. वो थॉट होता है सिर्फ आपकी, यू कैन से इट इज़ ओनली इमेजिनरी थॉट, एंड वो इतना ज़्यादा हाई लेवल का आ जाता है, इतना ज़्यादा हाई लेवल पीक पे होता है कि आप उसे डील नहीं कर पाते एंड यू आर फीलिंग वेरी मच एंशियस. So the clinical features include shortness of breath, dizziness, trembling, palpitations, and choking, nausea, chest pain or discomfort, fear of going crazy, losing control or dying even. Okay, so these are the symptoms of panic attacks. Now you might have met or heard of someone who was afraid to travel in a lift or climb to the 10th floor of a building, or refused to enter a room. If she or he saw a lizard, you may have also felt in yourself or seen a friend unable to speak a word of a well memorized and rehearsal speech before an audience. Okay. So these are basically third category, which is known as phobias. Let's look at the categories first. So we had discussed the generalized anxiety disorder. The specialized thing is in this that the cause is basically not decided. The root cause is not here. That's mean the anxiety not generated by the one object or the one situation. This is anxiety is basically generalized. The person is unable to relax. The person is unable to slow down, or the person is basically show a restlessness. ठीक है. Now the panic disorder, that's mean the panic attacks, the thought which we are thinking about, which are basically painful, and suddenly the thought is very much the intensity of the thought is very much high, and you feel suddenly attacks, and in that you are feeling loss of control, okay, going to crazy. These are the symptoms of panic disorders. Now come to the phobias. Phobias, that means excessive fear, irrational excessive fears about any object, any situation. आपने सुना होगा बहुत से पर्सन होते हैं जिन्हें लिजर्ड से फियर है, एक्सेसिव फियर है, फरी एनिमल से फियर हो सकता है, वाटर से फियर हो सकता है, हाइट से फियर हो सकता है. दिस ऑल्सो नोन एज सो मेनी काइंड ऑफ फोबियाज. ठीक है. सो बहुत सारे ऐसे एग्जाम्पल्स हैं, आपने शायद कभी एक्सपीरियंस भी किया हो. So these phobias are basically considered in the two categories, the specified phobias and the social phobias. We will read it in a separate sections. So these are basically phobias. These kind of fears are termed as phobias. Which kind of fears? That means excessive and irrational fear, which have no reasons, and the fear is very much excessive. Okay, so people who have phobias have irrational fears related to specific objects, peoples, or situations. Phobias often developed gradually or being with a generalized anxiety disorders. That means the phobias is existing separately also, and also with the generalized anxiety disorders. Okay, and phobias can be grouped into three main types. Here is two only, but the types is basically three, can be grounded into three main types, that is specified phobias, social phobias, and agoraphobias. So specific phobia, that mean यहाँ पे जो ऑब्जेक्ट होगा जिससे आपको फियर है, एनी सिचुएशन, एनी ऑब्जेक्ट, एनी पर्सन, which is basically specified. That's why this is called the specified phobias. For example, the height, the water, or you can say the anything, any animals, एनी ऑब्जेक्ट. ठीक है, बहुत सारे लोगों को ब्लड से होता है, ब्लड फोबिया होता है. ठीक है, आई डोंट रिमेंबर द नेम. ठीक है, ब्लड से हो सकता है, किसी भी चीज़ से, किसी को किसी सॉफ्ट एनिमल से हो सकता है. तो किसी भी चीज़ से जो स्पेसिफाइड ऑब्जेक्ट है, को जो स्पेसिफाइड सिचुएशन या स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन से जो एक्सेसिव फियर है, दिस इज नोन एज स्पेसिफाइड फोबियाज. नाउ सोशल फोबियाज. First of all, discuss the specific phobias. Specific phobias are the most commonly occurring type of phobias. This group includes irrational fears such as intense fear of a certain type of animal, or of being in an enclosed space, or intense and incapacitating fear and embarrassment when dealing with other characterizes and social and anxiety disorders. Now the social phobias, which is also considered as the social and anxiety disorders, and agoraphobias is the term used when the people develop a fear of entering unfamiliar situations. So many people with agoraphobias are afraid of leaving their homes, so their ability to carry out normal life activities is severely limited. Okay, so this is called social phobia, or you can say agorophobia. Agorophobia, that means the hesitation or the excessive fears to maintain or the create or the develop relationship in a society. ठीक है, आप जब किसी अनफेमिलियर सिचुएशन में एंटर करने से फियर करते हो, और रिलेशनशिप बनाने से, फ्रेंड्स बनाने से, आउटसाइड दी वर्ड से ही आपको एक एक्सेसिव फियर होता है. आउटसाइड दी वर्ड से यू आर सिटिंग इन योर कंफर्टेबल जोन एंड यू डोंट वांट टू ब्रेक इट. This kind of fear is known as social anxiety disorder, or you can say social phobias. Now another category of phobia is known as separation and anxiety disorder, SAD. SAD is another type of anxiety disorder. In individual with SAD are fearful and anxious about separation from attachment figure to an extent that is developmentally not appropriate. ठीक है, डर तो सभी को होता है, एक हल्का फुल्का तो डर होता है अपने लव वन से अलग होने का, बट व्हेन द फियर इज वेरी मच एक्सेसिव एंड इट्स सीवियरली अफेक्ट योर लाइफ, दैट देन ओनली दिस इज कंसिडर इन अ सेपरेशन एंड एंग्जाइटी डिसऑर्डर. आप अटैचमेंट जिससे भी अटैच्ड हो, उससे जिससे बहुत ज़्यादा अटैचमेंट है, उससे सेपरेट होने में आपको, उसके सेपरेशन से आपको बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सेसिव फियर होता है. इवन द थॉट, व्हेन थॉट इज ओनली जनरेटेड इन योर माइंड फॉर सेपरेशन, देन ओनली यू आर feeling very much discomfort. So children who with SAD may have difficulty being in a room by themselves, and going to school alone, are fearful of entering new situation, and cling to and shadow their parents every move to avoid separation. So children with SAD may fuse, scream, throw a tantrum, or make suicidal gestures. जब वो ऐसे होते हैं कि वो बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सेसिव फियर फील करते हैं अपने पेरेंट्स से सेपरेशन से, तो बहुत ज़्यादा सुसाइडल गेस्चर्स बना सकते हैं, या टेंट्रम्स कर सकते हैं, स्क्रीमिंग कर सकते हैं, फ्यूज़ कर सकते हैं. ये सारी एक्टिविटी वो बेसिकली यूज़ करते हैं, टेक्निक्स यूज़ करते हैं कि उन्हें सेपरेशन ना फील करना पड़े फ्रॉम देयर लव वंस. सो दिस इज़ ऑल अबाउट द एंग्जाइटी डिसऑर्डर्स. बेसिकली देयर आर four types: the generalized anxiety disorder, the panic disorder, the specific phobias, separation and anxiety disorders, and so many other categories are also here, which we will discuss. Another category is OCD and PTSD, which we will discuss in a next video, and we will clarify all these things also. So this is all about the anxiety disorder, the types of an anxiety disorder, the meaning of an anxiety disorders. Now move to the causes. Causes are basically we had discussing in a previous section. ठीक है, जो हमने अंडरलाइन फैक्टर्स डिस्कस किए, द जेनेटिक फैक्टर, द बायोलॉजिकल फैक्टर एंड द so many psychological factors. These are basically causes of an anxiety disorder also. An anxiety disorder, little bit genetic factors are prone to here. जेनेटिक फैक्टर्स भी फाइंड आउट हुए हैं. एट द सेम टाइम साइकोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स ज़्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस करते हैं एनजाइटी डिसऑर्डर को. साइकोलॉजिकल कॉजेज आर मोर इन्फ्लुएंसिंग. ठीक है, उसमें क्या क्या हो सकता है? बेसिकली साइकोलॉजिकल कॉजेज में द बिहेवियरल कॉज हो सकता है. ठीक है, उसके बाद कॉग्निटिव कॉज हो सकता है. बेसिकली कॉग्निटिव कॉज फोबियाज में हमेशा देखा गया है. फोबियाज का इवन ट्रीटमेंट भी आप करते हो तो कॉग्निटिव एंड बिहेवियरल थेरेपी की बेसिस पे ज़्यादा अच्छा हो पाता है. ठीक है, तो दीज आर द बेसिकली कॉज. अगर if we are talking to causes, तो definitely the causes are psychological causes, the behavioral, the cognitive, the psychodynamic cause, or you can say the social or cultural causes also. And let's talk about the treatment. So treatment of an anxiety disorder is basically the you can say the systematic desensitization for phobias and different type of therapies, for example relaxation technique for generalized anxiety disorders and panic disorders. This is also muscular relaxation technique is useful in panic disorders. And in OCD there are also CBTs, cognitive behavioral therapy is useful for OCDs. Because different type of therapies, different type of techniques we are using in treatment of an anxiety disorder. This is all about today's video. Let's discuss the homework first. So in your homework you have to do activity 4.3 in page number 77. I read the activity. Recall how you felt before your class 10th board examination and how did you feel when the examination were drawing near, 1 month before the examination and 1 week before the examination, on the day of the examination and when you were entering the examination hall. These are the situations. First of all, the one before 1 month, then before 1 week, then the day of the examination, and the point, that time when you are entering an examination hall. So also try to recollect what you felt when you were awaiting your results. So write down your experiences in terms of bodily symptoms. ठीक है, butterflying in the stomach, clammy hands, excessive perspirations, etc. ठीक है, आपको अपने जो physical symptoms आपने feel किए, you have to remember, imagine the situation of the examination, the different situations, and you have to write down your physiological changes, your symptoms. So as well as mental experiences, the tension, the worry, the pressure, etc. So compare your symptoms with those of your classmates and classify them as mild, moderate or severe. ठीक है, आपको एक ग्रुप साइकोलॉजी का जो है उस पर आप डिस्कस कर सकते हो. यू हैव टू डिस्कस विथ योर क्लासमेट्स कि जो सिम्टम्स, ग्रुप ऑफ सिम्टम्स आपने फाइंड आउट किया ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ योर इमेजिनेशन, द इंटेंसिटी ऑफ योर सिम्टम्स इज आइदर माइल्ड और सीवियर और प्रोफाउंड, or the either mild or moderate or severe. ठीक है, on the basis of these range you have to identify your symptoms, the severity of your symptoms, whether it is a mild or moderate or severe. So this is about your homework. Okay class, thank you so much. Let's revise the concept once again. Okay, so first of all we had understand the concept of anxiety, which is anxiety is usually defined as a diffuse, vague, very unpleasant feeling of fear and apprehension. This is the anxiety. And when we are considering these symptoms as a disorders, when the intensity of these symptoms are very much severe and the duration of this period is prolonged, then we can say that the individual is suffering from an anxiety disorder. After that, the anxiety types of anxiety disorder, in which we had studied about the generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and the phobias. So many phobias are also here. The specific phobias, that mean the the specific object are identified for generating the fears, excessive fears. Then social phobias, that mean when you feeling very much fearful for unfamiliar situations, then this is the social phobia. Then the separation and anxiety disorder, that mean SAD also we were discussed. And the OCDs we were not discussed, OCD and PTSD and dissociative disorder. Basically the OCD, PTSD and the dissociative disorders we will discuss in a next video. This is all about today videos. And okay class, thank you so much.